Hello everybody, VG Time here today. This time I'm coming to you with a deck that I actually felt very inspired to make. I wanted to combine very powerful cards from multiple archetypes together, and this deck allows me to do that. So I'm just going to jump right into it. Alright, so we're looking at Surge Goku here. Surge Goku does a lot. For those of y'all that have not been around for a long time, Surge Goku at one point in time was considered to be the best deck in the format. It was at least 1A, if not 1B, to Surge Piccolo, and eventually became the best Surge deck until Surge Cell much later. One of the things that hurt this deck from being as good as it could be was the errata to its skill, as well as the dependency upon monocolor that Unison Warriors series had brought forth. As such, there are weaknesses that the deck has, but I believe there's far more strengths than weaknesses. What inspired me to build this deck was that as I kept looking at various other archetypes, I realized that they were not able to do what the best decks in the format are able to do. Those decks being, arguably Gamma, U7, and Yellow staying that deck. Even though they might seem like they're very different decks, they have a lot in common. One of those things that they have very powerful unisons that create card advantage, or at least virtual card advantage. They have very good counterplays. They have very good floodgates, and they have cheap aggressive threats costing usually 2 or less energy to help put a lot of pressure on the opponent. And then lastly, they have a really powerful 4 energy play or turn 4 play that is hard to interact with and to help close out games. So I wanted a lot of those same benefits, but I did not want to put it into one of the typical shells. So Surge Goku it is, right? So what does he do? On attack, he draws 2 and discards a card. So that right there puts him on par power-wise with a lot of leaders, and the fact that he could get deeper into the deck than most, as well as set up drop area synergies, which I take advantage of that in this deck. And then he has a Surge Awaken mechanic, which is also very strong because another thing those decks have in common is the ability to awaken almost on command, assuming that they could set up scenarios for them. This, of course, only requires you to put a red card and yellow card underneath it, in which case you draw 3 and you untap 1 energy. On the backside, he shines as well, and that he has an activate main / battle that allows you to take a card from underneath him and place it in the drop. As long as you have 5 or less life, you're able to choose all your opponent's battle cards and negate their skills, or you could give your leader plus 10k in critical for the turn. This errata that happened made it so that this effect is only during your turn, which is very key because it was absolutely absurd before to be able to blink your opponent's board on their turn or make yourself a 25k leader that was hard to even get an attack in on your opponent's turn. So I understood why they did what they did. It made total sense. So I already mentioned these similarities that a lot of these top tier decks have with each other. And what I'm gonna do right now is show what I had included in this deck to mimic some of those items. So we already mentioned the powerful Unison. We are playing Baby Juvenile Parasite. This is the go-to Unison also for U7. Basically allows you to draw a card, so that's actual card advantage. It provides removal, which is virtual card advantage. It actually provides 2 form of defense. Because he's 10 on the opponent's turn, a lot of the times they think they could just swing into it and kill it. But because each card underneath it counts as an additional marker, so to speak, it actually is pretty tanky and prevents your leader from being attacked as well. And then the other form of defense is that if you're completely tapped out, your leader gets plus 1k. It might not seem like it matters that much, but it actually does, because on defense 1k is equivalent to 5, assuming that the opponent's cards are on the typical 10, 15, 20, 25 progression chart. Then we mentioned powerful counterplays. We're going to start with the first one, which is Videl. Videl is extremely good. She's similar to Charismatic Villain, except for in a lot of ways she's even better. Where Charismatic avoids deflect, so does she. but she could hit any battle card as long as it doesn't have barrier. So she doesn't care about costs or anything, which means she can hit tokens. She can hit things with the cost of 8. Stuff that charismatic can't hit. And when she does, what she does is gives them -20. So sometimes that kills them, sometimes just renders them to such a low attack that swinging with them is no longer really an option. And that's what makes her great. The other counterplay that we play in the deck is Vegeta. This Vegeta kind of became a staple in red. This Vegeta counterplays 15Ks or less, so it's great as a counterplay to opposing Videls, charismatic villains, things like that, as well as the Floodgate negates that people play, like Oceanus, Riposte, and so on and so forth. We mentioned a powerful turn 4 energy, hard to interact with play. We play the GT family. This is our version of it. It's a little more fragile than the other ones in that you have to be able to put it underneath the Unison and then be able to play it later. But what's great about it is that not only does it go underneath the Unison, it also has a marker. So usually what ends up happening is the Unison is at 5 to 6 markers on the turn it comes down. And at that point, it's pretty impossible to get rid of. And you'll be able to play it out on 4 if you really wanted to. Once you play it out, you could Spirit Boost 3, assuming you have the 3 markers to do so, to -30 your opponent's board. This play used to be a lot weaker against yellow before, but with this leader, not so much so, because you're now able to just blank their Poutines, their Trunks, their things like that, play this guy, and then wipe their board. We have Piccolo, New Ruler. This is again part of the cheap aggression package. It's played in all the red decks, including U7. So you see how that works as well. Another cheap aggression, we have this Goku right here. We usually build a decent board up, and this Goku only requires bond 3. So you could just play him, draw a card, and then make him a 25K. Of course, we have the Champa variant. We play in Kai. All right, so next we mentioned Floodgates, right? We mentioned that they run really good Floodgates. And Gamma, they have Android, was that 15 or 14? One of the two, I forgot which one it is. And Yellow Sand deck, they have Repose. In the red decks, they have, Violent Rays, they have King Vegeta's Imposing Presence, things like that. We're borrowing from that and that we're using 2 copies of Violent Rays. This is fairly decent in the meta right now. We have more on the side if need be. And just like the yellow decks, we're playing 4 copies of Repose. Now we mentioned cheap aggression. We kind of had that in the red with the Piccolo and this Goku. But we also have it in yellow with Raider's Warcry. Now, people might look at this card and think that it's kind of slow, but it actually isn't. This card right here is great on both players' turns. I don't really tap a lot of energy on my turn after turn 3. So Raider's Warcry becomes even more viable of an option. If you really want to put pressure in on somebody, it is also great. 20K double striker for 2 energy that draws you a card and switch some to rest mode. Is almost on par with like a Turles or something like that, except for you can also play it on your opponent's turn and stifle their attacks. I mentioned earlier we have drop area synergies. So we are playing 2 copies of Saiyan Instincts, as well as 2 copies of Bardock Cape. So the reason for this is that I don't always have the 2 energy for Saiyan Instincts, but I usually have at least 1. So even if I have one of these, I could just draw a card off it to help out as well. To continue the drop area synergies, 2 copies of Koitsukai. This is more so to help us against opposing Floodgates again. When we want to go in for games, we want to make sure that we punish our opponent if they do try to stop us. And Koitsukai is a great way to do that. We're going to go into the red-yellow cards before we get into the extra cards. For red-yellow, we have our super combo, 3 copies of Beerus. That kind of gives away what our ultimate is, but we have 3 copies of Beerus super combo, and I think this super combo is heavily underutilized. What it does is always draws you a card, even if you're at 8 life. When you combo it, you reveal the top card of your deck, add it to your hand, and it allows you to either gain 5k combo power if it's red, or minus an opponent's card in rest mode by 5k during battle, only for that battle. And of course, if you hit a red yellow card, you get both. Because we do run Beerus as our super combo, we do play 2 copies of this Beerus right here, which allows us to minus 10 2 items, 2 battle cards and draw a card. This is again a cheap, aggressive play. It's a one cost 20k that happens to have some removal built into it, or at least the potential for removal. And then it has the ability to pay 1 yellow and red later in the game to be able to minus 20 all the opponent's battle cards in rest mode, gain 5k, and triple strike. That ability comes better with the leader's ability to blank the opponent's board. So if they had a bunch of stuff with barrier and rest mode and things like that, you can still just get rid of it all. We play 1 card per year, Heartfelt Plea. We have multiple ways of generating 25Ks. So we play it. And as I mentioned, we kind of gave away what our ultimate is by showing 3 copies of Beerus, because our ultimate is Gohan Piccolo. So this card right here only requires your leader to be yellow. 1 copy of Mirror from the Skies. That's my overwhelming choice, and that rounds out the battle cards. What's left are the extra cards, and they are a doozy. So we played 3 copies of Realm. Realm only requires that your leader card is yellow. It doesn't have any energy requirements like a lot of the other realms do. So we're able to use this as a combat trick to tap down opposing cards, as well as removal. Power to Super Saiyan only requires that you have a mono yellow card charged and in active mode in order to use it. Whistled Melody. So I could have easily have put this in the drop area synergy section, because that's kind of where it belongs. If you have it in your drop, you could pay yellow, send it to the warp, and draw yourself a card. Now this could also be a bunch of other things, but I just think it might just be worth it. The other thing is that because it's an extra card that you're sending to the drop off your leader's skill, it also fuels Riposte, which is also key. The other effect, the counterplay effect, is also relevant. The ability to blank a card, a battle card that's 4 or less coming into play, could mean something. You know, it all depends. Battle to the Death. This card right here is absolutely necessary in the deck. It is probably top 5 most important card in the deck. What it does is it allows you to minus 25 a card ignoring barrier and add up to 3 cards from your life to your hand. That's the main part that matters. People who have experience playing against Surge like to try to starve Surge from getting to the life total that it wants to be at. Battle to the Death allows you to manipulate your life total so that that can't happen. And finally, 2 copies of Almighty Resistance. This actually might go up in copies. I actually have some on order because I just think this card is kind of nuts. It's a counter for counter attacks only, and your leader has to be red in order to use it, and you have to be able to pitch a yellow card. So there's not that many leaders that could pull that off. Surge Goku just happens to be one of them. So I've been playing this deck quite a bit. I've been enjoying it, and I hope you get a chance to enjoy it too. This is VG Time signing out.